Today, stablecoins have over $294 billion in market cap and also $3.45 trillion in monthly transfers. But what are stablecoins and how do they work and why do we need them? That is the topic we're going to discuss in this video today. We're also going to tie it into RLUSD and show you the bigger picture of Ripple and the XRP ledger and where we are really headed with stablecoins and how they are the new financial tool of the future. Don't go anywhere as we dive into stablecoins. Okay, so what is a stablecoin? To break it down very simple, a stablecoin is something that has a one-to-one ratio to a US dollar or whatever country's dollar. So one stablecoin is backed by that country's dollar, okay? So it's not something that's created out of thin air per se, because it has a backing just like our US dollar technically does right now as the fiat system. We're just now moving it online, which we've already done right now. When you think about it, your Chase or Bank of America credit card, debit card, what have you, or Venmo, whatever cash apps, you'll see that's already a digital dollar. You're not moving physical money through those apps, are you? No, you're not. You're using a digital dollar now. All this is a new processing way to speed up payments via the internet. So now, instead of waiting 3 to 5 days for the money to go through the ACH payment, which is just multiple banks, we covered it in a previous video if you've been around for that, it now bypasses all the middlemen straight through to the sender, to the receiver, etc. It's just quicker, okay? Also, it's programmable. So this means that if you're paying out your employees, you're running a business, you need to do payroll, you can set your funds to pay out those employees with a code and just automatically disperses across those employees. Or let's say you're an investor, you want to move your money around to different 401ks, Roth IRAs, whatever it may be. You can program your money and automatically send to whatever account each month. That when money comes in, it gets sent to whatever account automatically. You don't have to go through and physically schedule all those and go to those websites and send that money around. You can do it automatically real quick with a stablecoin, hassle-free, instant, super cheap, okay? Very simply put, that's what that is. At the very end of the video, I will leave a 40-second video that goes into a little bit deeper dive. If you're interested in that, it will be at the end of the video, so stick around for that. But now let's stop in and talk about RLUSD stablecoin, what they're doing, and why Ripple is a sleeping giant that is just quietly positioning themselves to pounce when the time is right. But let's start with a post from Jack McDonald, which he is the Senior Vice President of Ripple for stablecoins. But also, in another video we spoke about, Jack McDonald was also on the board for Standard Custody, which issues RLUSD. Just very much like the Fed will print and issue money, now Standard Custody can issue RLUSD instead. So you see how the dollar is printed by the Fed, RLUSD stablecoin is printed by Standard Custody, okay? So that's how that works. And Jack McDonald here sits on both of those boards, okay? So let's keep going. We have from Jack McDonald, September 30th on X, the August RLUSD monthly independent annotation is now live. This is the first report issued by Deloitte as RLUSD heads towards $800 million market cap. We're committed to holding RLUSD to the highest bar in regulatory compliance and transparency. Some highlights from another big month. He goes through and highlights it. So RLUSD is officially listed by Bybit Spot. Then RLUSD is now a key stablecoin off-ramp for BlackRock, Build L, and VanEck US VBill tokenized fund holders. So now you have RLUSD tied together to Ripple through BlackRock and VanEck. But keep in mind, if you're using RLUSD, they're going to want to start using that on the XRP ledger. We'll dive into that on the back half of this as well as we dive into RWA.XYZ. We'll provide you those inside looks so you can get a visual of what that looks like. Then we also have DBS Bank, Franklin Templeton, and Ripple have partnered to enable the first ever repo trade for a tokenized money market fund with RLUSD. Then RLUSD is available in Africa thanks to key partners, etc. So you have RLUSD, Ripple having a global tap into the financial system. They also are working with people like BlackRock, Van Eck, and then you're also working with Franklin Templeton, DBS Bank, BNY Mellon. BNY Mellon actually is the custody of RLUSD, which BNY Mellon oversees $45 trillion annually and moves $2.5 trillion daily. So keep in mind, when things go from dollars to stable coins, is that value not going to hit the ledgers? They're going to have to, because that's going to be the game plan. We are transitioning into this technology. So that's where we are headed. And that's why Ripple with RLUSD is really staking themselves as the leading provider for stablecoins comparatively to USDC or USDT, which USDT is now creating a new one for the American version, which I think is USAT, if I'm not mistaken. So you already have Tether pivoting and trying to catch up to what RLUSD has already done. Okay, so they already are the standard for stablecoins. So that's one reason why Ripple, XRP, and XRP Ledger is going to be massive. So when you hear all these people talking negatively about it, are they really looking at the bigger picture, or are they just in an echo chamber spreading the word that they're reading on the screen? So always be careful in the comments. Don't let people scare you out. Do your own research, educate yourself. So let's keep going. Let's talk about the new report that was dropped. So this was dropped. It says Ripple USD stablecoin, RLUSD, reserve backing hit a $773.6 million value. This is a part of the audit report by Deloitte, a major global auditing firm. The report signals that RLUSD is making significant progress despite being in the crypto space for less than 12 months. That's another key fact there is RLUSD has only been around for less than 12 months. It's not something that's been around forever like USDT or USDC. They've had several years on RLUSD. I know that's a lot of acronyms. If you're new, I'm not trying to confuse you. I will go through it here in a second. I'll give you a visual so you can see what I'm talking about. So Ripple's just now getting started is what I'm trying to point out to people. As we get closer to global adoption for crypto, which we're on the doorsteps. I don't know if you're aware, but 2026 is the deadline to get onto this technology. So we're at the finish line. We are super new if you are ahead of this 2026 transition, but we're at the very end of this finish line, and it's going to start flooding on chain. When I say flooding on chain, keep in mind that BNY Mellon, like I spoke about, just one player alone can bring in $45 trillion to that ledger or through multiple ledgers, but that's still a lot of money, right? Just one player alone. But let's keep on going. Let's look at Ripple. They put their annotations up here on their website. What I'm going to point out here is explain how this works. So it says the total circulating RLUSD is 789.7 million stablecoins, okay? RLUSD reserve fund is 824.7 million. So right now, when you use your fiat dollars, it can be printed out of thin air. It doesn't really have to be backed by anything. And how cryptocurrency is going to revolutionize currency is now we have something like the RLUSD stablecoin, where you have to have a one-to-one backing. They can't just print more money out of thin air and say, hey, there's all these extra stable coins. They have to have the reserves in their account, and they have to show each month that they have those reserves to back up those stable coins. Other projects have been busted for saying they have all these reserves and they don't. And that's given crypto a bad name because there's been a lot of bad players out there. But Ripple has been dedicated to being transparent and regulated and trusted because they are the game plan going forward. So that's important, knowing that they are holding themselves to that standard, that you can't just flood the market with stable coins. You have to be able to show that you have that in reserves as well, okay? Also, what's important to know about a stable coin is, especially with RLUSD, now let's say I put in $100 into RLUSD stable coin. So now when I pull that $100 back out into physical cash, those 100 RLUSD stable coins are now burned. They no longer stay in the system. So anytime people pull out fiat cash, those stable coins are burned because that cash is now gone. Then they have to release and reissue new ones as more money comes in. It keeps a balance of stable coins versus dollars. So that's how that system works in a nutshell. Okay. So that's a big benefit to currency going forward. It keeps it fair and balanced at that point. So let's keep moving. Let's jump into the RWA.XYZ so you can get a visual of what this means in real time. So let's pop in here. We have RWA.XYZ, and we are looking at the Ripple USD stablecoin. They have a market cap of $789 million, okay? But more importantly here is the monthly transfer volume of 5,466,727,000. So how that worked, like I said, it only gets burned if it's removed. So there's $789 million in this market cap, but it's been used so much that it's racked up to $5 billion in transfers back and forth, how much they've used it back and forth. Does that make sense? So let me know in the comments. Does that make sense? They are switching it back and forth to different users, which is added up to $5 billion. That's how you get the difference between the $5 billion and the $789 million. I hope I'm saying this clearly enough for you guys. But what I want to point out here is that the ledger for XRP only has $91.2 million on it, and the rest of it is on Ethereum for $698.2 million. Why that's important is the XRP ledger through Ripple. Keep in mind the difference here is Ethereum has been given that green light for years now to operate, where Ripple has been suppressed until here recently in August, where the case has been dropped. So they're just now getting turned on. And I want to show that and prove that to you here on the XRP ledger in a second. But I wanted to point this out to you as far as how much RLUSD is out there, how much it's actually being used, which is $5 billion worth in 30 days. So think about how much that's really being used right now. And when you look at it, there's only 4,387 monthly active addresses. So these are major players that are moving $5 billion around. This isn't retail moving this money around. These are big players that are going to activate this. And when this activates, get ready. So now let's look over at the XRP ledger. So the XRP ledger, as you can see, it has $364.69 million on it. But what I want to point out here is this transition right here you'll see on your screen. So this is how fast things can turn on and a switch can be flipped super quick. So if you look right here on the screen, you'll see that as of 7/7/2025, you have $115 million on it. But just overnight, boom, in one day, you went to $250 million. That difference in one day was $135 million added to XRP ledger one single day. Now let's look at the 2-month span where you go from 7/7 to 10/8. Sorry. So go to 10/8 from 7/7. You now have an influx of $249 million. So that's how fast things can jump in just a matter of a couple of months. You can add $249 million, and this is still just now being activated. They're still growing, they're still expanding. So I want to point that out, and look how super new that the RLUSD is. It's just now getting its start back in November of 2024. So it hasn't had a full year yet to grow and expand yet, as to where you look over here on Ethereum's network, which has been operating much longer with USDT Tether than USDC, you have them operating back all the way over here to 2020. So they've had going on 5 years to expand and grow this network to the $294 billion market cap, but the monthly transfer volume is 3.45 trillion. And of course it is, because they've been around for much longer. But now the big dog Ripple has stepped in, and you see that it's going to start pulling from that Ethereum network as you have the RLUSD switch over to our XRP ledger. So that's important to note. And people will say, well, hey, is that really going to happen? Why would you use XRP ledger over Ethereum? And Ethereum's better and more superior, all these things. But keep in mind that if you're using something like Ethereum, if you're going to run this $100 across the network, it's going to cost you about 4 cents to run it. But it's also going to maybe take up to 10 seconds to 5 minutes for that money to be transferred on the Ethereum network. Now, as a retail investor, that might be just fine for us, but somebody like a major institution, they don't want to wait around. They need to get it done now. So when they use RLUSD across the XRP ledger using XRP as a bridge, they can now send that same payment for less money, for like a cent or two, for $100, keep in mind, for a cent or two, and it will be finalized in 5 seconds, not 10 seconds to 5 minutes. And the variable rate with Ethereum, the variable rate to send it can get astronomical, where XRP Ledger will keep it more fair and balanced and cheap. So as a major institution, are you going to use Ethereum, or are you going to use the XRP Ledger with the RLUSD stablecoin? And you already see they have chosen RLUSD, which means they have already chosen the XRP Ledger. They just haven't activated that yet. So I guarantee you, going to 2026, you're going to see that activation happen in a fast time, and it's going to blow your mind how much money is going to flow onto the XRP Ledger, which means how much money is going to flow into the XRP network itself, okay? That was a mouthful. Thank you for staying around. If you are going to stick around, again, after the video, there will be just a 40-second clip. It'll teach you a little bit more about stablecoins. If that's your thing, check it out. All right, as always, take care of yourself, take care of the people around you, and become that change you want to see. I'll see you on the next one.
Stablecoins are digital dollars, cryptocurrencies built to hold steady value, pegged one-to-one to real cash. Every token represents a real dollar, backed by banks, treasuries, or reserves. Unlike bank wires, stablecoins move instantly, 24/7. No middlemen, no waiting. But what makes them powerful isn't just stability, it's programmability. A single command can send stablecoins to hundreds of accounts at once. Salaries, rewards, settlements, all automated by code. These programmable stablecoins bridge crypto with traditional systems, connecting banks, fintechs, and blockchain rails. Stablecoins aren't just digital dollars, they're the programmable foundation for global finance.